All right, just letting everyone knows tuning in right now, we're just still waiting on one of our committee members. Yeah, Betty, I'm not sure how long this is going to take. It might be good just to get things rolling. Oh, yep. Your microphone is muted, Betty.
There?
Yep, perfect. There we go.
I guess that happened when you went off the practice.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So anytime, I guess we're ready to
Yeah,
go.
we're live. Yeah.
Okay. Good morning and welcome to the first session of the Ballot Simplification Committee, meeting in session to prepare an overview of the legislation contained in the voter information pamphlet. My name is Betty Packard, and I was nominated to this committee by the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. Michelle Anderson was nominated by the Pacific Media Guild. Lauren Giardin was nominated by the League of Women Voters, and Scott Patterson was nominated by the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. Our clerk is Peter Stevens, and our deputy city attorney is Jenica Maldonado. This session is operating a little different from those in the past because we're each operating from home rather than a hearing room in City Hall. Therefore, we have instituted this week a different way of approaching each measure's draft from the city attorney. A member of the committee has taken the lead on interpreting the draft before we begin the committee discussion. Once we have then come to a consensus on a draft of legislation, we open the floor to public comment. And you are welcome to call in with your comments regarding what we have written. Once public comment has ended, we then go over your comments to see if they add substance to our draft. Following that discussion, there's a final reading, and that draft has concluded for the day. There also is an appeal process if you do not agree with our final draft. We need you to tell us in that appeal what you want us to do and say. I also need to tell you that this committee has nothing at all to do with the title. It is set by the Director of Elections, and your comments regarding the title should be directed to him. To begin this first session, we are considering a general obligation bond not to exceed $487.5 million. Michelle Anderson has taken the lead on this. Unfortunately, she's the one that we're missing at this moment.
Well, I'm right here.
Oh,
Yeah,
hi.
we have her.
Hi,
Yep.
now we have
Yeah,
you.
joining via phone.
Okay, good, Michelle. Thank you.
My computer rebelled. This is the first time this has happened.
Oh, well, now I even see you. So
yeah. This is my trusty iPhone.
Oh, well, good. Thank you for working that part out.
All well, right. We all try.
All right, Michelle, we're going to have Peter read the way it is now, and then we're going to allow you to discuss your comments and thinking on the way it is now. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Can everyone hear me? Perfect. Okay, let me just pop this on our shareable content with y'all so y'all can read along with me. All right. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
All right. So we'll start with the way it is now: mental health and homelessness, parks and streets bond. The way it is now, between July 1st, 2018 and June 30th, 2019, the city provides services to about 18,000 people experiencing homelessness. About 4,000 of those individuals have a history of both mental health and substance use disorders. Every day, 8,000 people experience homelessness in the city. The city offers temporary shelter to approximately 3,400 people per night through shelters, navigation centers, stabilization beds, and temporary housing. The city also administers long-term, affordable, and supportive housing with on-site social services to persons experiencing homelessness. The city operates and maintains 220 public parks and other open spaces and dozens of other recreational facilities throughout San Francisco. The city maintains 1,200 miles of streets, 50,000 curb ramps, 371 street structures, and 9 plazas. The Citizens General Obligation Bond Oversight Committee oversees the spending of the general obligation bond proceeds. We have over here Michelle's version.
Let's let Michelle talk about how what her thinking on, because she has proposed also an alternative. Michelle?
Yeah. When I first read this, I thought I was being buried under a lot of numbers. And as I said, I think that you don't explain the context, which is, I think that when I read the original, it was that they specified this. They gave you this information because it was it was in the context of, we are overburdened. These are the numbers. We don't have enough facilities and the capacity to deal with these numbers. Blah blah blah. We need more money. But in the absence of that, I think that the voter would be confused about, why am I being buried under all these numbers? And so what I did in my alternative is pare away the numerical aspects and just say, okay, this is what the city does. It offers homeless services also to those who experience mental health challenges. And then I go into the parks and this. Also, the thing about the way it is now is that the way it reads, it seems that it's limited only to the issue of homelessness and the challenges, where they're actually addressing the mental health challenges, homelessness, etc. So that is my rationale for my changes. I don't know if anyone else is bugged by the numbers, but I guess I'll just see.
Okay, Michelle, thank you. Lauren, you're first on the list. Would you like to comment on your thinking?
Sure, yeah. I had very similar thoughts to what Michelle suggested. My take on it was there seemed to be an overwhelming amount of information about the homelessness and mental health services issue, which seems to, in this section, to bias almost the view of this measure, especially considering that the homelessness portion of what the bond would be spent on isn't even the largest amount. The largest amount is the part for parks and open spaces. So my suggestion was to cut the last half, basically. So to keep it in line with the other sections, just list the scale of the thing being talked about. And, you know, homeless people aren't things, but you know, that there's however many homeless people, that there's however many parks, that there's however many curb ramps, and just keep that really consistent. And just list the facts and cut the interpretation and the narrative.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Scott, you're thinking?
I'm still thinking about Lauren's comments there, and I'm looking at Michelle's language. I like the alternate, and I would scrap the first paragraph and accept the alternate that Michelle recommends. That's really smart. What I'm trying to look at is the difference between the alternative. I think that in the sentence, the city operates 220 public parks and open spaces and dozens of other recreation facilities. We don't need the "in the city" at the end of that again. We'll just presume that the city operates it. It makes it parallel with the next point. So I'm good with just that change.
Okay. Well, I was looking at what we did for the March ballot on the bond issue, and what we did was we just said, because the thing that bothered me was that there was no consistency. We go from homelessness to parks to streets to and nothing to tie it together. And if you see the March issue, um, it said that we had one general statement at the beginning that said the city provides services for homelessness, parks and recreation, and streets, and then go in from there. And it just seemed to, I just seemed to think we needed something to tie it all together. I totally agree that we need to cut out all the 220 parks and the 9 plazas and the 8,000 in shelters, and or the 4,000 in shelters, because that's just too many numbers. But I just think we can cut this down even more to where people actually understand what this is, that it's a bond to provide services to a whole area of needs in services in the city, rather than just listing them and let them try to figure out that, oh, okay. So somebody have a thought about that?
My issue is that, it's another one of these initiatives that tries to do everything.
Absolutely.
And so that, I think that calling out some specific boundaries is not bad here. Like, for example, I don't think this is necessarily it is about streets. I mean, we're getting to the point here where we say the way it is now, the city takes care of the city, right? And so I think we need a little something there, but I don't know what.
Well, I had thought that we could say that the city provides services to people experiencing homelessness, and temporary shelters, and then just list the open spaces, public parks, recreations, just in one general. But obviously, Lauren, do you think we need a general sentence in there to begin, or do you think that it fits the way it is now?
Yeah, Betty, I agree with you. I think a framing device at the beginning of the way it is now, basically saying that the city provides homelessness services, parks, and yada yada, all of those things that are going to be talked about, frames everything that's to come, and defines kind of the things that we're talking about, because the city does a lot of things, and this is addressing 3 specific allocation areas.
I also thought this was a good place for bullets, because that takes away the need to actually have words to tie them all together.
Mm-hmm.
If we had a constructive sentence at the beginning, and then said the city provides services for, and then list bullet, homelessness, and shelters, etc., bullet, streets, curbs, street structures and plazas, mm-hmm. Bullet, parks, open spaces, rec services. I don't know if that's cutting it too narrowly, but
I think if we can look at the suggestion, that would be helpful.
Well, what we can say is that we can separate out into bullets services for the homeless. Maybe do we need mental health and substance abuse disorders?
Well, that's basically what the majority. Why?
Yeah, Well, because one is homeless doesn't mean that they have a mental health challenge.
Yeah, those aren't the same.
But mental health is a specific directive of the bond.
Yeah. So
right.
Basically, keep what we have here in the alternative and separate each different service into bullet points.
Well, I think I think it makes it more cohesive with bullets, but
Okay.
that's just me.
Sure.
Because you see, we jumped from homelessness
Right.
and mental health, then we jumped to parks, then we jumped to streets,
Okay.
and people are going, what? And at
Right.
least this way, when we say the city provides services for,
Okay.
public,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
I think that would make it easier to read. So basically, we can say the city provides services.
Well, I
for-
started off with mental health because that's basically why the bond was created to start with.
Right. Okay. How about the city provides services for mental health?
I like including rather than for,
Okay.
Okay.
because
Yeah,
it's a
common.
mental health service.
Right. Okay. Including mental health, homelessness,
Public parks, open spaces, and rec facilities, streets, curbs, ramps,
okay.
Yeah,
and
will you
plazas.
slow down a bit. All right, so after homelessness, what was next?
Parks, open spaces, and recreational facilities.
Okay.
And then streets, curbs, structures, and plazas. Streets, curbs, structures, and plazas, which is basically what we've said down here in the
Right.
single. Now, is that too generic?
Do we need street in structures?
Well,
I don't know. What is a street structure?
It can include medians, for example.
Okay.
I assume, from my understanding, I don't know if that's the scope
Okay.
of this bond, but that is sometimes included in street structures.
Okay.
I mean, if we think it's going to complicate things, we could just, say streets, curbs, and plazas. And if the Department if the department feels like structures needs to be in there, they could always let us know. But right at the moment, it's very confusing for us. So
Right.
Sure.
I think it's confusing for.
Well, I'm wondering if the structures isn't referring to these slow streets measures like the roundabouts and the entry portals and then the like speed bumps that they've put to try to slow traffic.
I didn't see it I didn't see it in the legislative text that it was that specific,
Okay.
but we can check.
I just wonder if it's even if it doesn't complicate it, because basically
Okay.
we're talking about parks, open spaces, and recreational facilities as a whole, and then we go to streets, curbs, and plazas, and that kind of makes it look like a whole rather than pieces. So
Mhm. I'd like to suggest the first two bullets be combined, since thinking ahead to the next section, it's also going to be divided into 3 areas because of how the funding is allocated. So saying mental health and homelessness projects.
I don't know, are they projects or services?
I believe it's projects.
I think it's projects. Yeah, that's what.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems to be involved around actual physical purchases and
Okay.
stuff.
All right. How does the rest of the committee? Michelle, are you agreeing with that?
Agreeing with.
Combining the homelessness, mental health, and homelessness?
Yeah.
Scott? Okay. Scott
Okay.
says yes. All right.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
All right. Does that, do you feel that covers what we need then?
I think that the first beginning of this, we're missing something. It needs to say the way it is now, then remove everything from after services to including, right? So we're getting rid of this entire first paragraph, right?
Yes.
So the city provides services including.
Including. Comma including. Okay.
Now, is that too non-specific? I personally think we're looking at a voter who wants to just understand what we're talking about,
yeah.
but that's just my personal.
Then I would take out the 3 sentences, the 4th bullet, which is empty, and the 3 following sentences. No, the 2 following sentences. I think we need to leave
I think the
the
last one.
bond oversight thing.
I'm not sure that we need the oversight committee. I think that just adds.
I'm happy to see it go.
I'm
Well,
happy to see it go.
Didn't we have it in the?
No, in March we threw it out as well.
Oh, did we? I thought that wound up in the final.
Actually,
What?
actually, really?
We put it in the proposal.
Oh, yeah.
We moved it to the proposal to let people know.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, right. Yes, that's what we did.
Okay, let's take it out.
Wait a minute. Let's.
Michelle, it's your baby. What do you
No,
think?
wait a minute. But where? Oh, right. You sent it to them. Oh, yeah. Take it out. Take it out. I was looking at the proposal.
No,
section.
yeah, it really goes to the bottom of the proposal that there's going to be a committee that appears to overlook how the spending is being done, and just to me it just complicates the way it is now.
Yeah, it just repeats it. Right. I would take it out in the way it is now and just leave it in the proposal. I think that's what we have. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Would you like to read the proposal for us, Peter?
Yes, I would. All right. Proposition blank is a bond measure that would authorize the city to borrow up to $487.5 million by issuing general obligation bonds. The city would spend this money on improvements to mental health and homelessness projects, parks, open spaces, and recreation facilities, as well as streets, curb ramps, street structures, and plazas according to the following allocations. The city could use up to $207 million of the bond proceeds on mental health and homelessness projects, including supportive housing units, shelters, psychiatric residential treatment, behavioral health and detox and sobering facilities, a new centralized behavioral health access center, and community health facilities. The city could use up to $239 million of the bond proceeds on parks, open spaces, and recreation facilities.
Peter, let's stop there and let's just talk about the first part of the bond, where we're talking about the homelessness, and then we can let's talk about each one of them and try to separate them. Michelle, what was your thinking about the first part where we're the $207 million on bond for mental health and homeless projects? I saw where you changed some of the wording there.
Well, I just most of my changes were changes
grammatically
on the style and
right.
grammar, including, and then each bullet point, the phrase begins with an initial cap, ends with a semicolon, and the language is made to be parallel. I guess that my only question is that do we have to? Would most voters know what behavioral health is? Because I would think that the term mental health would be more understandable, and behavioral health, I'm not so sure if they would know what that is. So
I'm more concerned about the sobering facilities.
Well, that too. I didn't want to be too nitpicky. Detox and sobering facility. Once we get past the phrase residential treatment, I think it's just too inside baseball tech talk. But sobering facilities.
Comments from the committee, Lauren, Scott.
For me, I would start with the proposal And my version is Proposition Blank is a bond measure that authorizes this, that would authorize the city to borrow $48.75 million by issuing general obligation bonds for the according to the following allocations. I take out the city would spend the movement on improvements of mental health. We've got lists upon lists upon lists. So I would take that out of the opening paragraph.
Okay.
And then here, yeah, we don't.
I agree. It's very repetitive. I
would, after shelters, do mental health facilities, mental and behavioral health facilities. The psychiatric is mental.
Because the actual language is behavioral. And I looked up, there is a difference between mental health and behavioral health. I don't know if that really makes that much difference.
But well, if we include both, then we're covered, right? With mental and behavioral health facilities.
Yeah, but
Lauren, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I when I was looking at this, I kind of went back and forth between retaining the bulleted list and letting people know what this amount of money would be spent on. This is not an insignificant amount of money. But then also drowning people in details. And is it doing anything for the voter to give them more details on what mental health and homelessness projects? Do they even need that much information? Some of that comes from later sections where it gets into even more detail in some of the bullets that I think really get very nitty-gritty. And I just don't know that that helps voters make a decision. If they see that it includes shelters or doesn't, is that going to compel anyone to vote or not vote for this? Is that information people need to make a decision on this?
So basically what I hear you arguing, Lauren, is that we get rid of basically all the bullets and we make the lead-ins bullets.
Yeah.
So it would be bullet, the city could use up to $207 million of the bond proceeds on mental health and homelessness projects. Bullet. The city could use up to $239 million of the bond proceeds. Now, we don't need of the bond proceeds all the time on parks, open spaces, and recreation facilities.
Yeah, that's where I'm leading. And then what we can do is, in the words you need to know, provide definitions of mental health and homelessness projects and define that there in terms of how it's defined in this bond measure.
I think if we do that, people will read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then, okay. But then I'm just wondering, this maybe jumping the gun a bit, if when it comes to the next section, I think that people may be more interested in which facilities would benefit, because we have, but let's get to that when we get to it.
But it could also be considered a ballot argument, right? That the people that are in favor of this could say, hey, look, this is going to specifically call out the Japantown Peace Plaza as a beneficiary of this bond.
Okay.
Do we need to say that in the digest?
Well, we're not to that point yet. Let's get the first part. Yes, what you have said is exactly what I was thinking, is that we need to just cut it off when would authorize the city to borrow up to $487.5 million by issuing general obligation bonds. And then we need a clause there with a semicolon to then go into the 3. How did we decide to finish that? Just by saying including?
It's on the screen now, Betty.
I know, I'm seeing it. Is that what we want?
Let's see. So, so it would,
according to the following allocations.
Colon.
Is allocations an 8th grade word? Is that what we want to say?
No,
No. According to the following, God, allocations.
Allotments.
That's
Even worse. I'm
do
aware.
we,
that's eighth grade. Eighth grade.
do we need a transition there? Could we end the sentence by issuing general obligation bonds, period? Next sentence, the city could,
That's what I would do.
Yeah.
How about
That's fine.
in the following way? No.
Yeah, I would leave it. I would just,
Yeah.
and then say the city could use up
Okay.
to. Now, are we, and,
yeah. That would work.
okay, and then we've got the bullets here for the bond proceeds, or I heard some discussion that we were just going to include it all in one sentence. So do you want the bullets or do you want it combined into a sentence?
Can we see it with a semicolon after projects and then the comma and including through the last bullet deleted, please?
Say that again. So you want a
Semicolon?
Yep.
And then delete everything from there to the end of community health facilities. Keep backspacing.
Wait,
Yeah.
Include.
take out everything.
the city. Oh.
something like that.
I think we've got to give some specifics. I think if we don't give some specifics, the city has just been overwhelmed with bond issue after bond issue, or the voter has, with bond issue after bond issue of money for homelessness. And I think that their attitude would be, oh no, another homeless bond. We need, and this is more than just a homeless bond. It's a mental health and homeless projects that include that haven't been looked at in the past and taken care of in the past. My personal feeling is that the voter is exhausted, but still needs to know what these an overview of what the projects are, not the specifics as much as an overview.
Could we accomplish that without needing a bulleted list underneath each of the allocations?
Yeah, why don't we just get rid of the bullets and just say something like including housing, some sort of housing, treatment facilities,
right?
Community health facilities.
Community health facilities. Do we need?
I think
since we said including, we don't really need to add a new centralized behavioral health act because I don't really know what that is. So maybe let's just give an overview of what this would fund, and we can say housing, treatment facilities, community health facilities.
I like to include the psychiatric and behavioral health facilities. I think that's the underlying reason for this, so that we can start doing something with the people on the street who need assistance. And I think in the general voter, there's a need to get these people off the street and get them some help, because I think basically we're a very empathetic city. And as we look at these people, we say somebody needs to help them. I think that's what this bond is all about.
Is treatment facilities different than psychiatric and behavioral facilities?
Well, if we don't have them, we have to take the money to make them into these facilities. Yeah.
Well, I'm just asking if those are two different things. We have treatment facilities in this list, and we also have psychiatric and behavioral facilities in this list. Are they the same?
No, I don't think so. I think one is for people who are really, really desperately mentally ill, and behavioral are the people who are using drugs and et cetera as an excuse. And, I think that
remember, our job is not to advocate
that's right.
a vote one way or the other.
Wow.
That's
So the question here is, is this information necessary for the voter to understand what this vote means?
Well, I would take out the treatment facilities and put psychiatric and behavioral health treatment facilities. I would, because that's basically what it is. We've got a redundancy there.
Psychiatric and behavioral.
We might leave it as just looking at the legislative text and how much all of this gets parsed. And treatment facilities are different than possibly respite facilities, which are different from some other type of facility. So keeping it a little bit loose there might be helpful.
So what's your recommendation, Lauren?
What we have on the screen right now.
Psychiatric residential treatment, the entire sentence, phrase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we just say community health, comma, psychiatric and behavioral health facilities? Is that, or are those separate? I'm asking.
I just don't think that behavioral health is a term that most people really get. Behavioral health. Yeah.
Lauren, what's your thinking? Scott, you're thinking?
Remember 8th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah, I say that as it appears on my on Peter's screen right now is sufficient.
And
then I would move on to the next one, make it parallel, pick the 3 concepts we think encapsulate all of the projects in the next bullet list and mirror, and then do the same thing for the final bullet list.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, I agree. I think we can say the Gene Friend and Hertz Playground Recreational Centers, we could combine those in the Buchanan and
No. Again, we don't need to be that far in the weeds. The city could use up to $239 million of the bond proceeds on parks, open spaces, on, let's see,
I'm
parks,
sorry.
open spaces and recreational facilities.
If we're moving on to this next section, I believe we need to read it for the record.
All right. Okay, so do you want me to start from the proposal or just this sentence here?
just this sentence.
Can we read the rest of the as submitted language so that we can get it into the record so that we can look broadly at the entire thing?
Sure. So I'll start here.
With the proposal?
The proposal, yep. The proposal or proposition blank is a bond measure that would authorize the city to borrow up to $487.5 million by issuing general obligation bonds. The city could use up to $207 million of the bond proceeds on mental health and homelessness projects, including housing, community health, psychiatric and behavioral health facilities. The city could use up to $239 million of the bond proceeds on parks, open spaces, and recreation facilities, and some of these proceeds may be used to fund specific projects, including India Basin, Gene Friend Recreation Center, HERS Playground Recreation Center, Buchanan Street Mall, and Japantown Peace Plaza. The city could use up to $41.5 million of the bond proceeds on repaving and repairing streets, curb ramps, street structures, and plazas. Proposition blank would require the Citizens General Obligation Bond Oversight Committee to review how these bond funds are spent. If needed, Proposition blank would allow an increase in the property tax to pay for the bonds. City policy limits the amount of money it borrows by issuing new bonds only as prior bonds are paid off. Landlords would be permitted to pass through up to 50% of any resulting property tax increase to tenants.
Having a hard time hearing you, Peter.
Okay, should I read that again? Can everyone hear me?
No, just go ahead and keep going.
Okay. A yes vote means...
No, that's okay. We just need the proper...
No, read the whole thing so we can talk about it as a whole, please.
Okay, on it. A yes vote means if you vote yes, you want the city to issue 487.5 million in general obligation bonds to fund mental health and homelessness projects, parks, open spaces, and recreation facilities, as well as improvements to streets, street structures, plaza, and curb ramps with a duration of up to 30 years from the date of the issuance. An estimated average tax rate of 0.014 per $100 of assessed property value, and with a projected average annual revenues to the city of 40 million, subject to independent citizen oversight and and authorizing landlords to pass through to residential tenants in rent controlled units up to 50% of the increase in the real property taxes. A vote no means if you vote no, you do not want the city to issue these bonds.
So now everything's been read into the record, right? So now we can go back and work on the individual sections. Thank you.
Okay, so we're on
the city,
239 million.
yes.
Yeah, and I would suggest that we can get rid of this particular list of special projects. Looking at the legislative text, there's a number of things that are called out in the legislative text on what kind of detailing what this can be spent on. I don't see that this list of special projects is any more compelling than any other list of mini details we could get into. They talk about playgrounds and recovery parks and trails, for example, in the legislative text. So I think we can just delete these bullets and just leave it with the semicolon after to fund special projects in the sentence above.
That's fine with me. Michelle, how do you feel?
That's true.
I would end it at recreation facilities.
Yeah, because these are just some of the projects that they would include, and they're no more compelling than the other ones that are mentioned in the legislative text. So, unless you live near one of these facilities, so yeah, we could end it at facilities. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a breakdown of, within parks, open spaces, and recreation facilities in the legislative text. There's a breakdown of different types of things that money will be spent on. 101 million on neighborhood parks. So I think that this kind of captures the gist of it.
Yeah, in the past, we decided that too many weeds just confuse the voter.
Yeah.
I think where we're going here is we're trying to communicate to the voter that there are specific proportional allocations without using the word allocation or proportion. And that I think these three sentences taken together would communicate to the voter that there's a channel for how this money is going to be spent. It will be spent on these three things in this way. I think that's really reasonable.
Yeah.
And so I'd say repaving and repairing streets. I would do.
I would just move it all up into the sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
$41.5 million of the bond proceeds on repaving and repairing streets, curb ramps,
street
structures and plazas.
Do you really want to put in street structures since not know what it is?
Really.
Yeah, and there's no further definition in the legislative text. They just say structures and plazas, as if anyone knows what that means.
Yeah.
I would say that we probably I don't know that we need repaving and repairing streets. So, because then we're saying what we would do to the streets, but we're not saying what we do to the curb ramps, and we're not saying what we would do to the plazas. So that seems to be a consistency issue.
Boy, I don't know.
How about improving?
Improving
Streets, curb ramps, and plazas.
Curb ramps and plazas.
The legislative text says for acquiring or improving these things.
Yeah.
So it's also for acquiring plazas?
No, I don't think we want to say improving or buying streets.
It seems. Yeah, I don't really get that.
fixing or getting. I mean, that's what they're doing.
Yeah, there's also rehabilitation and seismic improvement of, and the installation and renovation of. So I think leaving all of that out is best.
Yeah.
One thing it says here is that the legislative text seems to imply that it could be used for maintenance of streets, curb ramps, and plazas. And we're calling out here that it is only for the improvement of streets, curb ramps, and plazas. So is maintenance an improvement? Can we just go with improving? I like the way it is.
I like it.
Well, whatever maintenance is an improvement, so
Yeah.
it works.
Yeah.
All right.
I have two other suggestions just for these three sentences. There's a structural issue within each of them, so that it says the city could use up to. I think the word spend is more clear and specific. And then it says up to 207 million of the bond proceeds. I don't know that the word proceeds sense, so we could just say bond money.
Do we even need that the bond could spend up to? I mean, we've got the general obligation bonds in the beginning as the preface. So do we even need to say of the bonds?
I think of the bond money, because it's not freeing the city to use just any 207 million from maybe, say, the general fund. It's very specific to the money that this bond would raise. But I just want to take the language and make it a little bit more understandable.
Well, could we, in the lead-ins in each section, we could say the city could spend up to blah, 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 and then skip of the bond proceeds on mental health. And then in the next section, same structure. The city could spend up to 239 million on, and then in this same thing, spend up to 41.5 million on blah blah blah. So we would not have to repeat the phrase of the bond proceeds. We could substitute use for spend, and I think that would be pretty clear to a voter.
So you're saying use it in the very beginning of the three and then eliminate it from the second and third?
Or
actually, the city could spend up to up to 207 million. Well, do we need?
Or should this be a bulleted list?
What? Could it be a
This might be a bulleted list, these three sentences. So it could say an introductory sentence, the city could spend this bond money in the following ways.
Well, what you could just say the city could spend bullet
Right.
207 million on mental health.
They're all parallel, so let's bullet it.
Yeah.
So at the end of the,
I don't say up to, I just say, 207, because that's the max. That's what we're basically saying, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember anything in the legislative text about if they don't spend the money, then what happens. So I don't know if up to is necessary for it to be accurate.
Well, yeah, the vestige of my legal brain is just recoiling. Just, I mean, I see what you're saying, but
yeah, I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying that we might hear about this later.
I mean, what you say makes sense, but it's just
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't feel we need it, but I'm looking through the legislative text right now, but not seeing it.
Yeah, could spend
bullet. Yeah.
You can use the hyphen as a placeholder if you can't figure out the bullets.
So what is this looking like now? Oh, my screen is tiny. Okay.
Oh. Well, it basically just says the city could spend bullet 207 million of the bond money on mental health and homeless projects, including housing, community health, psychiatric and behavioral health facilities. Bullet 239 million on parks, open spaces, and recreation facilities. Bullet 41.5 million. Now, are we saying of the bond measure each time? I didn't think we were saying that.
No, I thought we were just going to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just 200. Now I see it on the screen. Thank you. 207 million on mental health. 239 million on parks, open spaces, and recreation. So is that the structure that we want? Yeah. Okay.
I know Lauren had an issue with the fact that the money needed to specifically be said that came from the bond measure. Does this take care of it, or do we need a couple of extra words in the city could spend the bond money as?
Oh, I see.
I mean, it's up to the committee how they want, if they think this is sufficient, but I noticed that Lauren had made the decision.
Yeah.
Comment earlier that she felt that it needed to be specific to the bond rather than not. So have we cleared that up here, or?
Well, you could say the city could spend the bond money in the following manner or something like that.
Lauren, you're the one that was concerned. How do you feel?
I'm trying to think if this would be confusing to someone rather than.
Say bond money could be spent by the city for.
But then we start off with a number.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
The city could spend the bond money.
Do we even need to say the city? Could we say bond money could be spent?
As follows.
Right? Yeah, as follows. Yeah, excellent. Just a second.
We sometimes get hung up with the city.
Yeah. Do we need the bond money? This bond money?
No.
This bond. I like this bond. Yeah.
This bond money could be spent as follows. Yeah.
And I checked the legislative text. I'm not seeing anything that indicates.
Yeah. Well. Yes. And since when was all the bond money not spent? Right.
Slowly, if anything.
All right.
Yes.
All right. And so are we content now with changing all of this around to and then we're ready to say the proposition blank would require the city's general obligation bond oversight committee to review how these funds are spent. Is that
But
clear
we would
now?
say how this bond money is spent, since we're using the term bond money.
Okay. So it would be this
Yes, I would take Michelle's language off her revision.
You would what?
I would use the language from Michelle's revision.
Okay.
Would require the general obligation bond oversight committee to review how these bonds are spent.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the change Michelle just suggested to review how this bond money is spent is consistent with the revisions that we've done.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I left this alone before we made these revisions. So since we're using bond money, we should probably continue to use it.
Well, and then we get into the next paragraph that says, if needed, proposition blank would allow which is A because it's a bond measure. If needed, proposition A would allow an increase in the property tax to pay for these bonds. City policy limits the amount of money it borrows by issuing new bonds only as prior bonds are paid off. Landlords would be permitted to pass through up to 50% of any resulting property tax increase to tenants. I saw the language in this legislative digest as being different from what I'd seen before, because they keep in this one it says landlords will be authorized. And we just had another bond measure in March that supposedly, was taking care of a paid off. I'm wondering how confused our voters are about all of these bonds. And then I see in the legislative digest, the language has gotten a little more interesting by saying the landlords will do this, will be authorized to do this, etc. So I don't.
Yeah, the legislative text says authorized, so they don't have to, but they can. They're authorized to. So
in section, let's see, in section 19 of the legislation, it says that landlords may pass through to residential tenants. These are rent control tenants, so they aren't. So they can choose to, but they aren't required to.
right.
Well, it depends on if there isn't enough tax, if the bond money isn't enough to take care of this, and they have to go to the property taxes.
Right. Yeah.
And the property taxes are increased. But when I was looking at it, the property taxes are pretty significantly increased here. So
yeah,
if you look,
I think the point may be that landlords are not required to actually pass through any pass-through increases. So as someone who's had a rent control department, sometimes landlords take the option to push those increases through. Sometimes they don't. It's not requiring them to. So I think the way that it's written now, that landlords would be permitted is accurate.
Yeah, it is.
Or we could say would be allowed to.
Have you read the letter from the Office of the Controller?
Yeah.
And it says the city's current non-binding debt management policy is to keep the property tax rate for the city general obligation bonds below the 2006 rate by issuing new ones as older ones are retired, and the tax base grows, though this property tax may vary based on other factors.
They're giving themselves the option, but saying that it's often not taken.
Yeah.
I think the change that I would have here is landlords would be allowed to pass. Just a slightly simpler word.
Okay.
Or they can pass through up to can.
Yeah, I like can better than allow.
Landlords could.
Landlords can pass through up to 50% of any resulting property tax increase to tenants.
Well, that indicates that there will be a tax.
It says of any resulting property tax.
Property tax.
And we would have to say could, not can, in order to agree with the other sentences in this section.
Right, could. Well, yeah.
Would.
Yeah, could pass through. Right, could pass through up to 50% of any resulting property.
And I don't think we capitalized land, or is it the beginning of a sentence?
It's just the beginning.
It's the beginning.
I see a comma. I see paid off, comma.
Period.
I don't like paying. I don't like.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, you can say retired, but most eighth graders wouldn't understand that.
All right, it's okay.
There's another difference between this and one of the ones we did for the last election. Just wanted to just rate it's different. I don't know that it matters. So this current one says city policy limits the amount of money it borrows. In the previous versions, it said city policy is to limit the amount of money it borrows. I'm not sure that there's any difference, but I just wanted to point out that this is different than the last time we kind of went through this
It
together.
is to limit, I think is better,
City
Yeah.
policy is to limit.
the amount.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's not reinvent the wheel here. That's a good.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
Scott. Yeah.
Right. No, good point. The amount of money.
So should we read this section again?
Yes, we should.
Yes.
All right.
Well, no, let's,
Right.
do you want to read, what's the committee want? You want just this section read, or do you want to go to the yes vote and then read the whole thing to see how it flows?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can have the yes vote. We all kind of know. I think we know what we want to get rid of.
I think we want to parrot it, don't we?
I think we want to take out everything at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's yeah.
Peter, to be more specific, anything
After bonds.
Uh,
Sorry, Jenica.
After bonds, where what?
well, I think there's the curb ramps piece up till there. I would say might want to keep. Anything after that, I would say to definitely delete.
yeah, I would.
Yeah. Unless we want to explain it further up, but I thought this was sort of trying to
This is just in case people don't read everything above.
undigested information in a yes vote. I thought that was rather.
Yeah, so this just is in case we repeat some things here, in case people don't read the proposal.
Take
And
out,
then
we take out street structures.
take out street structures, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we need. I'm kidding about this. We should really emphasize street structures. I don't know what that is.
Yeah. Right. Like flying saucers. Yeah.
You know, is a bathroom on the sidewalk a street structure?
Uh,
That depends.
well,
All right.
street furniture was the one that threw me for a loop, and I, had to, and that takes a half a page to understand. So,
All right, so
Can I just jump in and add a little bit about the yes vote means, if you don't mind?
sure.
Hi, good morning. This is Andrew. So just in terms of background, and I apologize if Jenica as well explained this to you before during prior sessions. So as you know, we try to make the yes vote means reflect the eventual ballot question for the measure at hand. And the ballot question, as you probably saw for the legislation, is already established in the bond ordinance itself. And it's fairly lengthy. And one of the reasons it's fairly lengthy is that the ballot question under the state election code needs to require certain elements. How long the tax is going to be there, what the tax rate is going to be, and how much annual tax revenue is estimated to be generated. So that's why we included that extra information, but that doesn't tie the committee's hands. But I did just want to let the committee know that's about it that way, included this additional detail. Again,
So it will be it will be the ballot question, though. It will be included.
It will be the ballot question regardless. So I just wanted to let you know that's why we drafted it that way, because we try to make the yes vote means track the ballot question, but again, doesn't tie the committee's hands. So
yeah.
I totally understand where you guys are coming from.
I'm sorry, Andrew. I didn't mean to be mean.
No, I understand. I'm not surprised at all. Andy and I have been doing this for a while. I totally get it.
Yeah, and I think it does demonstrate that maybe the Simplification Committee should help write those questions.
You guys maybe should write the elections code, actually, parts.
No.
Oh,
If
wow.
I could offer just one very minor suggestion on the question as it stands now. You may want to flip around the order of curb ramps and plazas to reflect the order in the proposal.
Yes.
So the parallelism just goes a little off there.
Yes.
Very
Streets,
minor thing.
streets, curb ramps, and plazas. Yeah.
Just to track what you guys do above.
Yeah. Reverse the curb ramps and plazas. You see?
No, in the question, Peter.
Oh,
Of the yes
Oh,
names.
I guess I could have done that. Okay, yeah.
It appears in a few sections, so we should do each of them. So in the way it is now,
they should
just tracking that.
parallel.
Yeah, and so we need to change that in the yes vote.
Yeah, just a
Yeah.
minor suggestion.
Okay. No, that's consistency. Good, thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
It's streets,
Okay.
curb ramps, and plazas.
Oh, sure. Okay.
I had that in my notes, but thank you for getting there ahead of me.
Yeah. Thanks.
Peter, you're going to become a Microsoft Word wizard here.
Using your law degree carefully here.
Really? Yeah. It's,
So we don't use serial comma, so we would not have a comma after ramps in those.
no.
And I saw one other place up here.
The third bullet in the proposal has it.
Oh, take them out. I missed them.
Uh-oh.
Oops. No, I'm working on another project that uses serial commas, so my brain is being infected.
I prefer them, so I always have to correct myself when we get together.
I
I
just
hate
them
serial
so
commas.
much.
I
hate
use them all the time.
I never use them unless I'm forced to at gunpoint.
The next
Yeah.
World War might be fought over serial commas.
Probably.
Okay, going back here, do we not need under the way it is now, an and after the second bullet, or
Yeah, semicolon end. We need semicolons at the end of all of those,
Yeah.
or the first one, and a period.
under the way it is now? Yeah.
What's it look like? Oh yeah.
All right, now, does that, we finally have taken this and spit it out a little bit here. So, Peter, can we have a reading,
All right, of the full
a
thing?
complete reading?
Okay. The way it is now, the city provides services including mental health and homelessness projects, parks, open spaces and recreational facilities, and streets, curb ramps, and plazas. The proposal. Proposition blank is a bond measure that would authorize the city to borrow up to $487.5 million by issuing general obligation bonds. This bond money could be spent as follows. $207 million on mental health and homelessness projects including housing, community health, psychiatric and behavioral health facilities, $239 million on parks, open spaces and recreational facilities, and $41.5 million on improving streets, curb ramps, and plazas. Proposition blank would require the Citizens General Obligation Bond Oversight Committee to review how this money is spent. If needed, Proposition blank would allow an increase in the property tax to pay for bonds. The city policy is to limit the amount of money it borrows by issuing new bonds only as prior bonds are paid off. Landlords could pass through up to 50% of any resulting property tax increase to tenants. A yes vote means if you vote yes, you want the city to issue $487.5 million in general obligation bonds to fund mental health and homelessness projects, parks, open spaces and recreation facilities, as well as improvements to streets, curb ramps, and plazas. A no vote means if you vote no, you do not want the city to issue these bonds.
One little thing. Going back. Okay. Going back to let's see, I'm trying. We have to put a comma before including in the 207 million on mental health and homelessness projects, comma, including. And then, yeah, and then housing. Now my screen is so tiny, it's so cute. Ugh. Okay, and I can't even see what I look like. Ugh.
You look, we see your eyes. You look.
Yeah, because I can just screen at a time on this phone. Oh well. At least I'm here. Okay.
Well, maybe you and Peter can work this afternoon trying to figure out how
Yeah,
to.
this is the first time my Mac didn't cooperate. Oh well, there's always a first time.
There he is, right. And just to be nitpicky, there is an extra space between in the proposal that after the bullet. Right there. Yeah. No, between the last bullet and the proposition would require, there's
Oh, gotcha, yeah.
an extra. There you go.
Also, we should probably insert bullet points before
Yeah,
the
yeah.
numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm having a little technical difficulty getting
Oh,
it
okay,
in.
okay,
So
fine.
they
Microsoft
will
Word
be.
and bullets never really had figured each other out. I don't know that we need to change this, but I do want to, we write out the word percent, and that was until recently AP style guide, but they changed it. They now use the percent symbol. I'm not saying that the committee needs to change its standard style, but, or the
Check
the
that
guide.
out.
But that
Yeah,
was changed.
AP, yeah, AP. What is it?
It's down. Landlords could pass through up to 50%.
Right.
Do we spell it out, or Michelle? Do we spell it out, or do we
I'm
use?
looking at my AP style book.
Yeah, this wants it not earlier this year.
Yeah, okay, percent.
But there's things that AP does that we choose to not necessarily follow because we think it might be better for the voters. So
No, I think that if it's easier to read, yeah. Wait a minute.
Can we see what it looks like with the percentage sign?
Yeah, why don't
Please,
we
Peter?
do that?
Let's get a visual cue here. I gotta say, I like the percentage sign. We use the dollar sign.
I also
Okay, use the percent sign when paired with a numeral. So what does this look like?
That's a numeral.
Okay, so good catch. When paired with a
gotta
numeral.
keep up with AP sometimes.
Yeah, okay, 31%. Okay.
Do we have enough of our voters who are second language who understand that?
So math symbols are actually more universal than words. So symbols sometimes are actually easier to understand if you are not English as your first language.
Okay, question. Yeah. All right. Anything else before we open to public comment?
Hi, can I make 2 minor suggestions?
Sure, Andrew.
Okay.
Always.
Thank you. So the first line or sentence after the way it is now, it says the city provides services and then goes to the bullet point list. I'm not sure if streets and parks and such really constitute services. So I don't know if you want to say the city provides services and facilities, maybe, including. See, some of those things are services, but some of them may not be. And my second friendly suggestion is in a couple times under the proposal, we use the phrase bond and money. The last digest for the March bond, I think we use the phrase bond proceeds instead of bond money. To me, bond proceeds seems a little bit more accurate, but I guess bond money works too. But I just want to point out that precedent.
All right. So
Thank you.
let's start with the second one first. Do we want to leave it bond money or go to bond proceeds?
Well, I think that, if we're appealing to the 8th grade vocabulary, I think that money would be more understandable. I mean,
Okay.
I know bond proceeds, but then I'm not in 8th grade. But
All right.
at least I
Lauren,
don't think I am.
Lauren, Scott, leave it as money.
I like it as money.
Leave it as money. Let's go to public comment, and maybe somebody has a.
Okay. Lauren.
I agree.
Okay. And the first one, he thinks the city provides services and facilities is better. Do we want to just leave it as services?
Well, in a sense, a street is a service. I mean, in a broad sense.
We use the word facilities in the second bullet point, and I like it the way it is.
I do too. Lauren?
I'm fine with it the way it is.
All right. Sorry, Andrew. All right. Now
No problem at all.
Now is when we open the floor to public comment. We ask that one, you identify yourself, and two, that you please try to keep your comments to about 3 minutes by telling us what you like or dislike with what we have said and what you would say instead. Andrea, I see you're first up.
So I have a cue here that I'm just going to start unmuting. It does look like the first one.
Oh, there's one before Andrea?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I'm going to unmute. Is there?
Okay. All right, caller one.
They are currently unmuted. Can you hear us? All right. We're going to go on to number 2. Yeah.
While they're bringing people in, how do you bring the chat window back up? I suddenly lost it and I can't figure out where it went.
So we currently aren't using the chat window.
It went away. Okay.
All right,
No worries.
You are on. Andrea?
So we couldn't get this, the sound for the poor number one caller who's been there forever.
Yeah, now Andrea should be. I'm not sure if her hand's been raised for a while as well, but Andrea should be.
But I've seen the call-in user, you know, the first one there almost from the beginning. So
Yeah, so they may have raised the hand and they may not be available. We can always circle back. I'm just going down.
okay, all right. So now Andrea.
Hi, committee members. This is Andrea Brest from the mayor's office. Thank you for your time, and it's sad to not be able to see you all in person. Like, we get together every year and see each other and catch up. So I'll be really quick. I appreciate your revisions thus far, and I only just have a couple of things. So under the way it is now, the first bullet point, which limits it to mental health and homelessness projects, is accurate when you talk about the proposal, because bond funds really can only go to fund projects and physical facilities. But currently, in the way it is now, the city funds lots more than just mental health and homelessness projects. And I think it, maybe efforts or something. I know you have services above, but something else that shows that it isn't just projects. And I know this is the odd one out in how you describe the 3, because you either have to say people experiencing mental health and behavioral health challenges or describe what it actually is. So I would just advocate for a word that is a little bit more expansive than projects, that reflect services and physical facilities, such as facilities and services or efforts. Under the proposal, in the mental health and homelessness, the first bullet, I would advocate to also include the word shelter after housing. I do think that when you are talking to average voters and residents and talking about homelessness, shelter is a sort of commonly understood term that is used. And while housing, the way the legislation contemplates housing, there is sort of our traditional permanent supportive housing and sort of more transitional and not permanent shelter housing. So I do think it would be a little bit more inclusive, and it is a relatively commonly understood use when talking about homelessness.
Andrea, would you use both housing and shelter, or both?
Yeah,
one.
I would do housing, comma, shelter, comma, community, and then the way you have it, because I do, while you can argue they are the same, I think when you talk about homelessness and when you look at the legislation, there are sort of 2 buckets contemplated in terms of permanent and temporary shelter.
All right, thank you.
And then I just thank you for the consistency on the property tax language and the yes vote language. I know we go through this every 6 months, it feels like. So I think consistency is a good thing. And so I will not tinker with those, and just appreciate the city attorney's guidance on all of the technical details. But I do think the simpler version that we've had the last couple of bond measures is probably the way to go. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have another caller.
I believe we do. Let's try this again. Let's see. Call in user 6. Can you hear me? If you are a call-in user, you have your hand raised. Please begin to speak. All right, I don't hear anything here. So that seems to be everyone who currently has a hand raised. If anyone, oh, we have another one. All right. Comment in. All right. Caller, you are unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Yay! Okay. It's David Pilpel. Thanks for doing the work that you do. To start with, can you possibly make the text on the screen full screen or page width or something? Because it's a little difficult to read on the screen with all the other things going on. Great. That's very helpful. Okay. I've been following your discussion for the last hour and a half. Very helpful. Here are my thoughts. At the top where you've got the way it is now, the city provides services. I think Andrea just discussed that, and hello to Andrea, regards to Judson. Maybe the city provides a variety of programs, projects, and services, including and then farther down, the discussion you had about bond proceeds or bond money, maybe money from this bond could be spent as follows. I thought. You said that those 3 bullets under the proposal will be bulleted like the ones above.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, I didn't read all of the text of the measure. Does it actually specifically require CGOBOC to review how the money is spent?
Yes.
And if not, maybe you want to move that sentence back up to the top where it was under the way it is now, that CGOBOC generally reviews how bond money is spent, because I think that is true as in the way it is now, and that nothing in this bond measure changes that. And then I think there was something else that's below there. Can you go down past if needed? Right. The second line in the if needed paragraph, city policy is to limit the amount of money it borrows. I think the it is a little vague. It might refer to the city. It might refer to the amount. Maybe just replacing it with the city. And I think those are my comments right now. You've done a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. I was not sure where he was there. The very last comment he said, where the city it borrows, where is that?
Right.
Oh, I see it. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's start from the beginning here. Andrea has suggested in the way it is now that the mental health is more than just projects, so that if we could add something to that to show that it's more inclusive. Any comments?
Initiatives. What we say there kind of also plays into the introductory to that whole bulleted section. We wouldn't want to repeat the word.
Yeah.
So jumping a little ahead to one of David's comments, to change that sentence to the city provides a variety of program projects and services, then we wouldn't want to repeat any of those words in that first bullet unless absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
Would you like to see that written out?
So while we're there, do we want to try out putting in a variety of?
Yeah, so it was the city provides a variety of programs, projects, and services.
And then we would
He just said programs and services. He didn't say projects.
programs and services.
That's what he said.
Okay, and then we wouldn't repeat projects. Oh, okay.
Fine.
Do you like that?
That's okay.
Do you like that better? We still haven't addressed Andrea's concern is that the homeless and mental health are more than just projects. So, but we're happy with leaving it the way it is because we think it transitions into the proposition better.
Programs and services, including. So leave it mental health and homelessness projects.
Is programs a better word than projects?
Yeah, that was what I was thinking.
And then we could say a variety of projects and services.
And services, including that's a possibility.
We could just switch the two words.
Yeah.
And then say mental health programs because
because that could include housing, shelter, treatment facilities, blah blah blah.
That's fine. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then in the proposition bullet 1, she thinks that, or the proposal bullet 1, she thinks we need to also include shelter.
Yeah, I thought that earlier and I neglected to bring that up. Housing and shelters are very different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's shelters, isn't it? More than
yes, plural.
Shelters, yeah.
Okay, so I think we've taken care of Andrea's. We've gone down to David's. He's taken care of the first one, and he on the proceeds that I didn't know where it was. He says that money's from this bond.
Yeah, so it's above the bulleted list with the dollar signs. Yeah.
Right. So, do you want to see how that would read there?
Yeah, I like his suggestion.
Could you repeat that suggestion?
Yeah.
So instead of saying this bond money could be spent as follows, it would say money from this bond could be spent as follows. Money from the bond.
How about bond money?
Yeah, I like bond money.
So revert back to the original.
Well, no, shorten it even further.
So just getting rid of the word this.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's understandable.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I saw something that bothers me, and that is in
Oh, sorry, Betty, we had one more comment from David.
What?
We had another comment from David.
Where he says the money from this bond, the city.
No,
the city money it borrows. Yeah.
Yeah.
He wants to change that to the city policy is limited is to limit the amount of money the city borrows by issuing new bonds. He thinks that it is too generic. That
I don't like to repeat the word city in that way, but maybe we could change I see that there's a grammar issue that he's pointing out. So maybe instead the sentence could read, the city's policy is to limit the amount of money it borrows so that it more clearly applies to city.
Or it could be city policy is to limit the amount of money borrowed.
Borrowed?
I think the past tense there might be confusing.
yeah, I don't like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we have
Let's see, but
Control
the
Z.
city
Yeah,
policy,
I don't have a real problem with it borrows.
city policy.
I mean, the reference to it is really clear.
Yeah, it's so close to well, it borrows.
Yeah.
I think there is a point in the grammar that city policy is the actual object.
Right, it's not really grammatical.
The city itself is not an object in that sentence. It's city policy is the object, and then it will refer to the object city policy.
You know, so the policy doesn't borrow, is what you're saying.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So the one suggestion I had is the city's policy is to limit the amount of money it borrows, and then it can clearly apply to the city as an
Policy is
object.
to limit, yeah. No, the city still is the same thing.
Yeah, it is. It doesn't
Yeah.
do
It is,
Change
yeah.
it.
All
Yeah.
right, yeah. Well, grammatically, you have to do city. The city borrows by issuing new bonds. English. I mean, sort of.
Put it back to city policy at the start, Peter.
Yeah, take out.
Take out the, and then down below, replace it with the city.
Well, that's what he wants to do.
Yeah, or
That's grammatically correct.
or the policy of the city is to limit the amount it borrows. I mean, it's kind of like
Well,
I mean,
this is
correct
grammatically
grammar sounds
correct,
stilted, but it's
but
like
whether it's eligible is another issue.
Yeah, I don't know that this is more clear than the grammatically incorrect version.
yeah,
I
well,
think-
it's like the old cigarette thing. Do you want, as I say, do you want good grammar or good taste? When Winston, I think, was assailed by saying Winston tastes good like a cigarette should, when it should have been as.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think the bad grammar is better.
Yeah, I think,
it's
yeah. It's,
The other thing that bothers me is I don't like paid off. Could we just say paid?
Paid back.
Just that.
paid back.
Until
paid.
prior bonds are paid.
Paid, yeah. Okay.
I mean, the off just kind of seems like, I don't like it. But
Well, it's a little bit vernacular.
Well, we could say repaid.
well, you don't repay the bonds, do you?
Yeah, okay. I mean, that's in
But
the need.
you also don't pay the bonds. You pay them off, or you
pay them off.
pay them back.
Resolved.
Yeah. You pay them off?
How about a hyphen off?
No.
You know,
Yeah, I think paid back is something that people do say and understand versus paid off. That's, I don't know, like you
Yeah.
Well, you pay off a mortgage.
pay off a bookie.
But a mortgage is paid off.
Paid back is more of a loan, whereas
Yeah.
I like paying off a bond.
Yeah.
I just think paid says the whole thing.
I don't think that you pay bonds. You pay them off.
How have we done it in prior years? How did we do it last March?
Well.
Paid off.
Paid off.
According to Webster's, payoff is to pay a debt or creditor in full. Of course, it says bribe. Let's see. Discharge. Yeah, everything else seems to be a little bit more starchy. Discharge, liquidate.
Okay, all right, I give up.
It's like
I give up. I give up.
We're testing, Betty.
That's what we said last March, and I think we had the same discussion last March. So then here we are. All right. Then I guess that we've discussed everybody's issues. Can we have a reading, Peter?
All right, I've been told my microphone's a little screwy, so can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, good. The way it is now, or to start with, mental
Can't
health.
hear you again.
You can't hear me?
No.
Okay.
It's when you turn your head.
Okay, I'll get a better microphone for tomorrow. I apologize to everyone. The way it is now, the city provides a variety of projects and services, including mental health and homelessness programs, parks, open spaces, and recreational facilities, and streets, curb ramps, and plazas. The proposal. Proposition blank is a bond measure that would authorize the city to borrow up to $487.5 million by issuing general obligation bonds. Bond money could be spent as follows: $207 million on mental health and homelessness projects, including housing, shelters, community health, psychiatric, and behavioral health facilities. $239 million on parks, open spaces, and recreation facilities, and $41.5 million on improving streets, curb ramps, and plazas. Proposition blank would require the Citizens General Obligation Bond Oversight Committee to review how this bond money is spent. If needed, Proposition blank would allow an increase in the property tax to pay for the bonds. City policy is to limit the amount of money it borrows by issuing new bonds only as prior bonds are paid off. Landlords could pass through up to 50% of any resulting property tax increase to tenants. A yes vote means if you vote yes, you want the city to issue $487.5 million in general obligation bonds to fund mental health and homelessness projects, parks, open spaces, and recreation facilities, as well as improvements to streets, curb ramps, and plazas. A no vote means if you vote no, you do not want the city to issue these bonds.
Anybody have any additions, corrections?
Nope.
If not, the chair entertains a motion to adopt.
I second the motion.
I'll move to adopt.
And Michelle seconds. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? The legislation is adopted. The digest is adopted. We do have an appeal process, and Peter is showing the submission process on the screen. If you are not pleased with what we have said, we will be hearing, we would ask you to please see that your proposed language is submitted to the publications at sfgov.org by 4 p.m. tomorrow. We will be taking up all appeals for this Monday through Wednesday on Friday morning, and this will be the very first item on the agenda on Friday morning's appeals. So if you do not like or have suggestions as to how this could be changed, please put in writing exactly what you didn't like and what you would like for us to say, and send it to Peter Stevens at the Department of Elections. Having concluded the digest for the general obligation bond, we need to determine whether there are any words you need to know that should be put into our collection. I think we were pretty clear. I think we separated all the words this time. Anybody have anything we think needs to go?
Yeah.
Michelle probably will say behavioral health.
Yeah,
Peter, can we get the digest on the screen?
Yep.
Thank you. There we go. Okay. I believe we need to define open spaces. And then I also think we need to define recreational facilities.
I'm not sure. I think we need to think on those things because I think generally people understand open spaces.
And recreational
And
facilities.
yeah, they know, most of them identify it with recreational centers.
Yeah, or tennis courts. Or
Yeah.
Open spaces would, I guess most people would understand that to be parks and.
Right, and we have parks here, so since we write both out, it seems we might need to explain that they're not the same, since we bothered to include both.
No, I think you're in the weeds on that one. These are, I think, commonly known terms.
I don't agree, but that's my suggestion.
I would suggest we get a definition of open spaces and see if, see later, then we can make the decision as to whether or not we think it's necessary. So
yeah, that's a fair. I just really hadn't thought of it.
Let's leave the open spaces, get a definition on it. Peter, maybe you could contact the Parks and Rec and see if they can give us a definition on open spaces. And
do we
anything
want a
else?
definition of street structures while we're at it, just for fun?
Well, fortunately, we took those out.
Yeah.
But Michelle has been concerned about behavioral health facilities.
Yeah, I just don't know what those are really.
And so
Yeah,
I think
the definition would be good.
As opposed to mental health?
yeah, well, and we've separated them, so maybe we do need to at least look at the definition on that one as well.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
I mean, we can, it doesn't, just because we look at it doesn't mean we have to adopt it, but at least we've got it to look at. So basically the only two things we're looking at for this bond measure is open spaces and behavioral health. Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I always lean more towards providing more definitions, you know, make sure that everybody understands what we're talking about. Since the shelters was added in, I'm trying to, you know, I know that there is a difference for the city between housing and shelters. I don't know that we need to explain that difference for this measure to make sense, but.
Yeah, I think it's pretty well, it's just me, but I think it's pretty well understood. Anybody else think differently?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of, you know, things that have been happening in the city recently with all the different facilities and all the different ways they've been trying to address this issue and some of the centers that have opened up. So I think it's probably fine without a definition, but.
Okay, so we're looking at two definitions that we need to consider on the words you need to know, Peter.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm still looking back at open spaces. I'm like, how's open space not plazas? I think it would even help me I understand what an open space is versus the other things we have listed. Be helpful.
All right. Anything else? Then I guess we've covered the words you need to know. For the public, we've discussed the proposed digest for today, but does anyone have any further comment they would like to make regarding the voter information pamphlet and the ballot? We are open for public comment on those issues. While we want you to be able to speak and be heard, we ask that you keep your comments brief. Do we have any?
As of right now, no one has their hands up. If you would like to put your hands up, remember it's *3 if you're calling in. Yep, okay, we have a hand up.
All right, hearing none, we therefore
actually, Betty, we do have one.
Okay, all right.
Call-in user 16, you should be unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
We can.
Hi, it's David Pilpel again. Okay, sorry, going back to the prior digest for a second. I'm fine with all that you did. I can live with all that. I don't recall that you had a discussion about my comment on moving the Seago Bach line.
No, we didn't.
And I think you're absolutely on the right track with words you need to know, and you can argue about housing and shelters and da-da-da. good things to think about. I don't have the right answer on those.
Okay.
Did I mention what a great job you guys are doing?
Oh, thank you.
Well,
Never mind.
David, we've already adopted it for the day. So if you would like for us to go back and look at the oversight committee placement, you can put that in an appeal process.
I don't want to do an appeal. I think, and one of the deputy city attorneys can correct me if I'm wrong. I think even if you've adopted it, you could rescind the vote, reopen the discussion, have the discussion. If you want to move it, move it. If you don't, then just leave it, and you're fine. I think your action is only final at the end of the meeting.
Well, that's true. I was just not wanting to go into all the opening it. The only reason, and I'm sorry that I did not go back and look at that. We were following our past, and that does not necessarily mean that what we've done in the past is correct. But before, we've always left the oversight committee down to the proposal, because that's where the voter itself seems to be understands it in more, the voter understands it more when it's down there rather than up in the beginning. In the way it is now, we kind of like to leave it just pretty much, this is the way it is. And something like the oversight committee is ancillary, and so we like to put that, because it is important, we like to put it down where we're talking about the money being spent and saying that this is exactly where we think it needs to be. And I basically was thinking of that and didn't ever bring it up.
You know what? Good explanation. I can live with it. Let's move on. Lots of other problems in the world. This isn't a big deal.
Okay. All right, Dave.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to talk about? Say?
I'm good. I'll try to check in tomorrow morning if I wake up early enough. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. All right.
Okay.
And we may want to think about what he said, but I absolutely left it in the way we've always couched it and didn't go any further. So that's my mistake, and I'm sorry for that. Does anybody else have anything else to say? Andrew, are you happy with sitting in with us today?
Yes, very much so. Good to see you all.
Yeah, we don't often get to see you very often. So good to see you. And I never before had mentioned that Andrew Shen from the city attorney's office was also sitting in with us, and he did pipe in. So that's who the Andrew was we were talking to. So if I have no other comments from the committee or from anyone, then this meeting is recessed until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Have a good day.
Okay, great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone. Wow, shortest meeting ever.
Knock on wood. Yeah.
I told Peter it would be over at 11. I missed it by 8 minutes.
That's pretty good. Okay. Now I can see myself. Oh my goodness.
All right. Well,
Meeting on an iPhone. Anyway, see you
All right.
tomorrow.
Bye.
Tomorrow.
Get this computer fixed. Not that it's broken, it's software. Anyway, so I see you tomorrow.